tonight, and so we like to record it. So, well, thanks, David, for joining us.
You're so welcome. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited. You know, I know we talked the other day and we just shared a little bit about how just the huge growth of this group, and we have a wide variety of people on here tonight. And you know, every month we try to provide a lot of value, just because we want people to really understand how powerful the Healy is. And after talking with you the other day, I was just really excited because you know, we've done a lot of training in the last few months, but a lot of it's very much on the frequencies and the quantum sensor and using it in that way, but not as much on the microcurrents. And I know that that's what we talked about the other day with you. Like, I'm really excited because we've had a lot of people asking questions this last couple of weeks, and to be honest, it's not my specialty, but it's yours. So I'm excited that this is your, you know, I know you've been using this in your practice, and just, we sent this out on email this morning, a little bit about David, but I just want to let you guys know that David's been, you know, working in the medical field for 35 years, and he's been a practicing doctor of Oriental medicine for the last 25 years. He's also worked in the field of emergency medicine as a paramedic before that. And I love that you have the, you know, the two different pieces of the medical world, you know, in your background. So I think when people can bring that together and be able to speak to everyone, it's really important. And then you've served as a staff instructor at the Colorado School of Traditional Chinese Medicine. You use microcurrent in your practice for 25 years. And I know several of the other practitioners on here and doctors have studied frequency specific microcurrent for the past 10 years, FSM. And so that's, I know that's a big part of your practice. And David also incorporates herbal medicine, acupuncture, cold laser, homeopathy, functional medicine, biological medicine, and frequency medicine in his practice, and is an advanced FSM practitioner. So I like to get all that out there because, you know what, you need to know that this man has a lot of experience behind him, and we're really very honored to have you on tonight and just kind of roll through like some of the questions that, you know, we had this conversation the other day, and just talk a little bit about like what, you know, maybe one of the biggest questions we talked about is, you know, for you clarifying like the microcurrent coil. So anyway, I will let you kind of just jump in and say hi to everybody, and then we'll jump into whatever you want to share.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for that great introduction. And hi, everyone. Yeah, I have really been fascinated by electromedicine, frequency medicine. I kind of even see myself as like an electromedicine specialist because way back when I was in acupuncture college, one of my instructors taught microcurrent. So I started using microcurrent as an acupuncturist 25 years ago. And it was very simple, very, very basic microcurrent device. Frequency wasn't really much of a part of it. It was more just the current intensity, microamperage. And I just alligator clipped my little devices to acupuncture needles, and that's how I treated people. And I actually saw amazing things with it. One of the conditions I first started to treat was peripheral neuropathy, which is nerve damage. And I had people having incredible recovery. So, in a very, very short time with just microcurrent, not even the frequencies. So I have used microcurrent, like I said, for 25 years. But at one point I was kind of curious as to, you know, what new advances there were in microcurrent research. So I was just Googling online, and I found Dr. Carolyn McMakin's textbook, not the one that a lot of people have read, Resonance, but her first textbook was more for medical providers. It was pain management using frequency specific microcurrent, and very, very detailed. Like, you could read that text and actually learn to do FSM yourself. And I did before my official training. And then I went through and I had my official training 10 years ago. And And since then, I've gone through the advanced training, become an advanced practitioner. But what I liked about FSM and Healy is that they are a dual therapy device, is how I like to think of them. They are treating in two completely different ways. One is just the current intensity, and one's the frequencies. So I think that's important to remember, because with the Healy, especially, we can use either one of those or both of those together. And I, like you, Don, I think that we see a lot of people that hear so much about frequencies, they forget about the value and importance of just the microcurrent itself. And even Marcus has really reminded us of the importance of using the microcurrent part of it as well. I remember reading a post, might have been in the Telegram group, and they were talking about a professor who had done a study when they came out with the coil to look at the difference between the effectiveness of the Healy using the coil, which is just frequencies, or using the wired up with the cables, which is the frequencies plus the microcurrent. And it was interesting because his take was that they were very, very close in effectiveness, but the microcurrent method was a little bit more effective. And that's because it's an additional way to treat beyond just the frequencies. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the microcurrent, because I think it's so valuable. It's so important to understand what it's actually doing, but also it's an area that I think a lot of people don't yet fully understand in Healy. There's been little explanations here and there that I have seen, but hopefully, as they continue to work on our back office and the academy, maybe they'll have some more information about just the microcurrent part of it and how valuable that is. So when I, did you have a question?
No, I was just going to say, just for those of you, when you said Marcus Schmicky, he's the founder, and yes, just so, because we have some new people on that might not know
that's
that.
True.
He's the one.
I'm glad you said that, because that'll remind me to clarify when I say things. Yes, well, Marcus Schmicky is the brilliant quantum physicist who created Healy, and really, and we'll talk about this towards the end, really made an evolutionary leap in frequency medicine, and I'll tell you why that is. But when I think of Healy, when I think of frequency medicine and what Healy can do, I like to think of it in the same way as I do FSM. So I'll kind of explain it a little bit from the frequency-specific microcurrent, FSM perspective. So FSM was created by Dr. Carolyn McMakin. She's a chiropractor who really was presented with some of the original machines and frequencies from back when this was really where the frequencies really came from. So I'll just say that really quick about the frequencies, because it is kind of an interesting topic. Where did these frequencies come from? And are all of these frequencies from all of these different perspectives, companies, researchers, are they all the same? And I find them not to be, interestingly enough. So we've got really here with Healy now a broad umbrella that is pulling together and encompassing all of the different researchers in frequency medicine, including Carolyn McMakin in the West, including the Portuguese researcher Nuno Nina and others, kind of bringing them all together under one umbrella. And they are all frequency researchers, but they are using frequencies in a little different way. So FSM is, the frequencies in FSM, much of them come from the research of a brilliant MD in San Francisco in the 20s and 30s, Dr. Albert Abrams. So he was a real maverick, really brilliant genius who created a whole electromedical society. So there were a whole society of doctors that were all doing research in frequencies for healing. And they had their own medical journal, the Electromedical Digest. So they had a place to put their research, and a lot of that has survived. Not all of it, but we actually have some of those original documents with frequency lists, but we don't even know exactly how those frequencies exactly were applied. In other words, the devices that were used, was it microcurrent? Was it not microcurrent? We don't really know. It probably was not microcurrent. They were just plugging these machines into the wall. But at that time, it was kind of a 50-50. Was it DC or AC? So this was, back at the time when alternating current was first discovered and was starting to be used. So it wasn't like every house, all of your outlets were AC. So we don't know. Some of this, as far as the medical application of it, might have just been direct current, not AC, but some might have been AC. Anyway, they really did a lot of research and found a lot of correlations between very, very specific frequencies and certain illnesses, symptoms, diseases, and had some really remarkable success in treating some of the really bad illnesses of the day: tuberculosis, syphilis, and cancer. Albert Abrams had some great success with that. So those are the frequencies, a lot of the frequencies that we have, but the hallmark of FSM is it's always two frequencies going into at any given moment. So it's a dual frequency therapy, whereas Nuno Nina's research was in single frequencies. So the Healy right now, the 14,000 frequencies that we have to use are Nuno Nina's research. So they're all individual frequencies. So as of now, whenever we're running a program with Healy, it's one frequency going into you at any given moment. So that's kind of one of the big differences. I do still hear sometimes, not as much anymore, but I heard in the past sometimes people being a little confused about Healy and saying, Healy does FSM. So I wanted to kind of clarify there's a huge difference between how they're applied and the effects of those frequencies. And you'll probably see some of the same frequencies. 40 hertz is one that we see in the news even because of some of the research and using that for Alzheimer's and brain research, dementia. 40 hertz is a huge important frequency in FSM, and I'm sure that it is one of the frequencies used by Nuno Nina as well. But we don't usually in FSM ever use a single frequency all by itself. It's always paired. Were you going to ask a question?
Oh, I just wanted to say that I just learned this, gosh, maybe 2 weeks ago, that I didn't realize Carolyn McMacken was on our medical advisory board with Healy,
yes,
as well as, and then Nuno Nina is as well. So
yeah.
I thought that was
that
really
was one
cool
of the
I
reasons
knew that you'd studied. Yeah.
That was one of the reasons I got into Healy, because it was actually a patient of mine who introduced me to it originally. And the way she said it was that Dr. McMacken had joined forces with Healy, has shared all of the FSM frequencies. So I was kind of skeptical at first, and I looked into it. I was like, wow, she was right. She really is. And saw she was on the advisory board. She helped to develop Time Waver McMacken. So Time Waver already has an FSM, device. Right. And it was back in Miami in 2019 at the Miami Roadshow. They were already talking about incorporating FSM into Healy. Wow. Cool. So it's something they've been talking about, and I'm hoping that eventually it will happen.
And fun fact, everybody, last month when you guys got to meet with, you heard Karen and Donna's story about who they brought the Healy to have them check it out to make sure it was legit. It was Dr. Webb.
And I've done a lot of testing on mine. When I am using a device, a piece of technology, and patients are coming to me, paying me good money to get a really good quality treatment, I want to make sure that that device is operating perfectly, is doing exactly what the manufacturer says, and that it's putting out, in this case, the frequencies that it says and the current intensity that it says. So I've done a lot of testing on mine, and I think that has helped me to be able to help others to understand, if nothing else, the microcurrent part of it and the intensity part of it. Because that's still a big question that I see a lot in the Healy Facebook groups is, what percentage should I put it on? How high should I turn it up? What's safe, what's not, all of that.
Yeah.
So I'm going to talk a lot about that because I think I really want everyone to understand not only what intensity to put it at for the best effect, but why.
Yeah.
And the research that it's based on.
Well, and so we were just at an event. We heard Frank talk about how it's personalized, it's a personalized frequency program,
Yes.
like individualized, right? And so when you're not hooked up to the wires and you're just using it through the quantum, with the frequencies, he was talking about how it's every single time you run a program, it's even if you run release in the gold cycle, every single time you run it, it's a different program because it's real time reading what you resonate with, what frequencies and what you don't, and it's building the program based off of that. And that is just such a fascinating thing with the Healy.
That's one of my favorite parts of the Healy. That was one of the reasons that it really pulled me in and made me decide that I have to get into Healy, because that's unique to Healy. FSM does not have that ability.
Yeah.
So one of the big differences between FSM and Healy is that FSM is really for medical providers. They only teach it to licensed medical providers, and it's pretty extensive training. We have to really learn a lot about the individual frequencies, how to use them, how to put them together into a protocol, where the Healy does all of that for us. It's what I call a smart machine.
Yeah.
So a smart device really has the ability to, when I use the term smart device, and there are other smart devices besides Healy, but a smart device in my mind is one that has a biofeedback capacity where it's not a one way. It's not just the frequencies going into you to treat you, but it's a two-way. The device is also reading your response to those frequencies and adjusting, making changes, altering the program so that it's in real time, as you said, making that a very, very personalized treatment for you in that moment. And it's a unique treatment that will never happen again. As Frank has said many times, the likelihood of that same exact treatment ever happening again for anyone is so remote, it's pretty much non-existent. That we all are getting with Healy completely unique treatments every single time we do it, because we're looking at not only what frequencies are put in, but the order of the frequencies, the time spent on those frequencies. A lot of factors to make it very unique.
Yeah, and I love and also the safety of that, right? Because there's I know a lot of us are practitioners and many of us aren't on this call, but that it's to be able to rely on the Healy to do that for us, and that it's not, that we can't actually do too much on somebody is really powerful.
One way to look at that would be to compare it to like pharmaceutical medicine, where in pharmaceutical medicine, you are treating everyone the same. So everyone with the same disease name gets the same treatment, but we're not all the same. We're all unique. We're all individuals. So when you are treating everyone the same like that and not appreciating the individuality and uniqueness, that's when side effects come in.
Right.
What's wonderful about a therapy like Healy is because it is testing you first to find out of a huge pool of frequencies, which frequencies you actually resonate with in that moment and need. It's only using frequencies that you actually need. So it's not giving you something that you don't need that then could potentially have adverse effects or a side effect. So that cuts it down and makes it just a really, really friendly kind of therapy.
I love that. Awesome. So you were going to talk about, because I know people ask this question about the intensity. So when you talk about the intensity, you're going to talk specifically around the microcurrent intensity, right?
Yes.
When you're hooked up.
Yes.
Yeah. And
yeah.
I heard you talk about it in the past about the bell curve, and it was really interesting.
Yeah.
So I definitely want you to share that with everyone.
Yeah, let's talk about that, because I think that's one of the most valuable things to really understand about your Healy. I think it helps a lot of people, especially those new to frequency medicine and new to Healy, with a device like this that is so complex. I think there can be sometimes some fears of, oh, am I using it right? How do I use this? What do I do? What intensity level do I put it on? And unfortunately, I have heard even some high-level therapists on Facebook groups make some, unfortunately, some incorrect statements about current intensity. So I want to share this with the knowledge that this is based on published medical research. So this is not just someone's personal opinion of it. It's not what people feel about it. This is the science based on published research back in the 80s. So what we found was that microcurrent, well, first of all, just I'll back up. Again, repeating that with the Healy, it treats you in two completely separate ways. One is just the current and the intensity or strength of that current, and one is the frequency. So we're going to set a frequencies aside right now and just look at the intensity. A lot of times when I'm teaching this to my patients, I'll explain to them that there are tons of electrical stimulation devices on the market, different TENS units. They all have their own unique bells and whistles, but all of these therapeutic electrical devices can be divided into just two simple categories. And that's based on the strength or intensity of the current, what its amperage is. So they're either microcurrent or microamperage or milliamperage. There's nothing else as far as therapeutic e-stim devices. If you went above milliamperage, it would be so strong that it would harm you. If you went below microamperage, it would be so minute that you wouldn't have any effect from it. It would just be minimal to no effect. So all of the therapeutic devices are microamperage, milliamperage. So we all have electrical currents passing through our body every moment of every day. So those electrical currents that occur in our body are in the microamperage and picoamperage range. So they're below the threshold of sensation. We don't feel them going on. So when you use a microcurrent device, we just call it a microcurrent device. That's a device that operates with a current intensity in the microamperage range. So when we're using microamperage, we're using a current intensity that is the same as what happens in our body all the time that we don't feel. That's why in general, with microcurrent therapy, you don't feel the electrical current. And you're not supposed to. There's a huge, huge misconception about this, especially in the Healy community, because I think it's because of just how we've been kind of taught in the West. We have this belief in strong medicine, heroic medicine. We got to feel it. It's got to be strong. The stronger, the better. And that's actually not always the case. Sometimes less is more. So when we're looking at electrical therapy, we really want it to be down in the minimal microamperage range where we're not feeling it. When you use a TENS unit is operating at the level of milliamperage. That's 1,000 times stronger current intensity. That's way more than what our body is used to handling. And so that makes microcurrent much more biologically compatible to our system. Our body is made to deal with and handle microcurrent. It's not made to deal with milliamperage. So milliamperage is that intensity that the chiropractor or physical therapist turns the TENS unit on to the point where you feel that tap, 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 and you see the muscle contracting. So that's a strong current intensity. Now, what we found about current intensity was very, very fascinating. This goes way back into our past, where back in the time when, and a lot of people have forgotten about this, we had a big battle going on in the United States between two systems of medicine that were vying to be the primary system of medicine in the West. One was our conventional pharmaceutical surgical medicine that we have today. And how many people can guess what the alternative was, which almost took over? And it was what created the very, very first medical society in the United States, homeopathy. So homeopathy played a much bigger role than most people realize. It's been almost forgotten. We had homeopathic hospitals, medical schools, pharmacies all over the United States, and MDs were exiting conventional medicine in droves, converting to homeopathy because it was so powerful and so effective. So the homeopaths created the first medical association. The AMA was created 2 years later.
Wow.
But it was during this time of intense battle that an interesting and very important discovery was made. A discovery that, hey, Google, stop. A discovery that should have completely transformed medicine, to make medicine as we know it today very different than what we see. So this discovery was a discovery that was a basic fundamental process in the body, how our body was made to deal with external stimuli or information coming into our body. And they called it the biphasic dose response. Today, its new name is hormesis, and it's one of the hottest areas of research in every area of science. And they have found that this fundamental way that our body responds to everything applies to pharmaceutical medicine, light therapy like laser therapy, electromedicine, exercise, radiation. It's just how our body is made to respond to external stimuli. So what that boils down to in electromedicine is that when you're applying a current intensity, a very, very, very low, minute intensity like microcurrent has a very different effect than a very high current intensity like milliamperage. Not only a different effect, completely opposite effect. And that's basically what hormesis is. They found that a very minimal stimulation has the effect of stimulating biological processes, stimulating growth, stimulating all kinds of different cellular processes and healing, whereas the opposite, high dose, has the opposite effect of suppressing all of those. Mm-hmm. So I'll make that really simple in describing what that means with electrotherapy, because it sounds confusing. So what they found was that, and this was based on published research, they found that when you start to turn your Healy on, let's say that the default was not 15%. Let's say that when you first turned your Healy on, it was 0. So when you first turn it on and 0 current is coming out of it, you're not going to have any therapeutic effect, right? And as you turn it up and that current is increasing, the beneficial therapeutic effects increase. The more you turn it up, the more beneficial effect you get, higher and higher and higher, greater beneficial effect, until you reach a point that's the peak of a bell curve. And if you keep turning the intensity up, now it goes down the other side of the bell curve, and you have less and less and less therapeutic effect until you get all the way down to the bottom of that effect. And now it's like 0. You have no more beneficial effect. If you keep turning the current up, now it goes into a detrimental effect.
So what's the sweet spot?
So what this means is that whole bell curve of beneficial effect is all microcurrent. As soon as you have gone all the way to the top of the bell curve and back down to no more beneficial effect, that's where milliamperage starts. So that's 1 milliamperage. You've lost all of the beneficial effect from the current, and now you're going to continue to turn it up, and it actually has detrimental effect. So what they found was that in that bell curve of beneficial effect, you have an increase in cellular energy by as much as 500%. That means that your cells, in creating cellular energy, ATP, will create as much as 500% more cellular energy because it is being given microcurrent.
Wow.
It also, that microcurrent bell curve within the beneficial effects is also increasing cellular waste removal. Yes, we want our cells to continue to detoxify. And it also stimulates the healing and regeneration of any tissue you put it through: bones, ligaments, muscles, tendons, nerves. Any tissue you put it through, it will stimulate rapid regeneration, accelerated healing. That's microcurrent. TENS units have been around for longer than microcurrent units, and they are still used a lot today for pain management. So what's the difference? They can only say that they can block pain signals temporarily. A TENS unit manufacturer can never say that they're actually useful in promoting healing. Not only do they not promote healing, they suppress healing. So in that bell curve, we've got, going up to the top, the peak of the bell curve is about 500 microamps. So 500 microamps is half of a milliamp. So that whole bell curve fits within the whole microamperage range from 0 microamps to 1,000 microamps, which is now 1 milliamp. So the whole range of microamperage is all beneficial, but the peak of the benefit, the most benefit, is about half of a milliamp, 500 microamps. So that's going to be important, because I'm going to tell you what I found in testing the Healy and the actual microamperage that equates to all the percentages, which is going to be very, very valuable. Because to me, when I looked at the Healy and I saw, okay, there's an intensity here and it was in percentages, to me, I said, that means nothing to me. It means absolutely nothing. A percentage is nothing. It's like my old basic, simple little microcurrent device that had a little intensity knob that went from 0 to 8. It doesn't mean anything. It's just, it was used in the same way that they're suggesting to use Healy. Turn it up until you feel a buzz, and then maybe turn it down a little bit. So we're going to go through what that means, what you actually feel when you're feeling something with FSM or Healy microcurrent. But,
can I ask you a quick question?
Yes.
Is it different for everybody, that bell curve?
Well, it could be different. That was based on research where they summarize, the all of the different subjects that they looked at. That would be, pretty much like the average.
Right.
But I would say for most people, that's pretty much what it's going to be.
And
it's
are you going to go? Are you going to let everybody know what that bell curve is, like in the?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. So I'll say it in this way: the bell curve of when you're looking at 500 microamps at the top of the bell curve and the therapeutic effects of all of that, that's the same for everyone. How people perceive and feel the current can be individual, right? Because we all have our unique sensitivity. Some people are a little more sensitive than others. So some people can feel the current in the Healy a little bit more than others. Some people can turn it up to 100%. They're like, I don't feel anything. Other people can turn it up and go, I can actually feel. So the sensitivity to it varies, but the actual effects of it are pretty much the same with everybody. Okay. So we can safely say that there is this bell curve. The beneficial effect of current is all within the microamperage range, increases cellular energy, so the cells are supercharged. They have more energy to heal faster and more completely. increases cellular energy, waste removal, and also stimulates the rapid regeneration and healing of any tissue you put it through. You get to the milliamperage range, decreases cellular energy, decreases cellular waste removal, inhibits healing.
Okay.
It can only temporarily block pain signals. So I'm not a big proponent of TENS units. I never use them. I don't like my patients to use them because microamperage is as pain relieving, if not more so, but it has all of these beneficial effects for the whole body and helping to promote healing systemically, whereas milliamperage can't say that. It actually has negative effects.
Wow.
Who wants to use something for pain management when they know that it's actually inhibiting healing in the body?
Mm-hmm.
De-energizing cells, decreasing cellular waste removal. You know, when people know that, they're kind of like, yeah, why would I use that?
Right. So the Healy gives you all the benefits.
Yes.
And also
so
does the pain, right? Like, I mean, that's what we came in with.
It's amazing, amazing for pain. Very anti-inflammatory. Just microcurrent itself is very anti-inflammatory. Mm-hmm. And because it's anti-inflammatory, that's why it's pain relieving. Mm-hmm. So what I did was, before I tell you the percentages and what they equate to, let me tell you how I use current intensity in my practice with FSM. So with FSM, knowing that about 500 microamps is the top of the bell curve, we still in FSM, we don't use that. The most we ever really use is 400 microamps. So we would use 400 microamps on someone who was like a very large person, like a bodybuilder, a lot of body mass, a big, tall, large person, might get 400 microamps. But for the average person, when I'm treating someone, and I differentiate between if I'm treating the body from the neck down or if I'm treating the head. Because there's a lot of delicate tissues in the head, like your brain, your eyes, your ears, all those wonderful tissues inside of our head that are very sensitive to electrical current. So I use a much less intensity on the head. So body down, when I'm treating someone with FSM, I usually start at 260 microamps, and I usually go 260 to 300. That's it. I usually keep it to that. And what I'll do is I will turn it on at 260 and I'll say, do you feel anything? If they don't feel anything, I'll turn it up to 300. And I'll tell you what I mean by if you feel anything. So if I'm treating from the head up, I only go up to 150. 150, 160 microamps is what I use on the head. So based on that, I decided to look at the percentages on the Healy, and I tested every single from 15 to 100%. Every percentage I tested to see what its corresponding microamperage was. And I can, if you want, I can put out, a little chart like on Facebook, in our Facebook group. But I don't even know how valuable that is. People really want to know more. What should I set it at? Mm-hmm. I don't even think about most of the percentages. I just go for the percentages that I know I want. So if with FSM, would generally be using 260 to 300 on the body, I look to find out what percentages those were on the Healy. Now, it's important to say that Healy World did make a recent change because people were not understanding microcurrent. They didn't understand that you're not supposed to feel it. Its therapeutic effect is when you don't feel it. The wanting to feel it comes from TENS units and the thought in Western kind of medicine that, it's got to be strong therapy, the stronger the better. And I've had patients that come in and I hook them up to FSM and they're like, not understanding it, not knowing, they go, turn it up, turn it up, turn it up. I'm not feeling it. You can turn it up as high as you want. That's not how it works. Yeah. So it's not even that we don't need to feel it. We need to get it out of our mindset that it's beneficial to feel it. It's not. With microcurrent, you don't really want to feel it.
Okay.
You're going to get the most wonderful, wonderful therapeutic treatments, not feeling a thing.
Right.
It's not necessary or important to feel the current with
So
microcurrent.
because I love all this information, and you're just amazing at sharing all this. I know that we're starting to run out of time, and I know we have a couple of extra things we want to talk about, because can you share with everybody like what that bell curve looks like for the Healy? Because I know most people on here, they're probably like wondering what is it for the Healy?
I'm going to do that right now.
Okay.
And I'm going to preface it by saying, because people were confused about feeling, not feeling, and there was a huge uproar on Facebook, I can't feel it anymore. Healy turned the intensity down. So what they did is they made the toggle so that if we go into our Heal Advisor app, we can toggle between a high setting and a low setting. So I've tested both. So I'm going to give you the percentages for both. So that way, whether you've got it set at the high toggle or the low toggle, you know what it is. All right. So we'll start with the low setting, the original setting, what it was originally. So if you're in your Heal Advisor and you have it set down to the low range, and you want to treat the head, 45% to 50% is what I would use. I wouldn't go above 50% because 50% is 160 microamps. 45% is 140 microamps. So, I mean, you could go 45, 50%, and that's perfectly fine for the head. And that would be for people who have like ear clip electrodes, and they are putting the current directly through the head. Okay. If you've got the electrodes anywhere below that, and this is not talking about the coil, this is talking about the wires, and you're treating the body, then you want to do the like 260 to 300. So 70% is 260 microamps, 80% is 300. So anywhere between 70% and 80%, you're 260 to 300 microamps. But remember that 500 is the top of the bell curve. So if you went at the low intensity setting up to 100%, that's only 380 microamps.
Okay.
So you are only getting therapeutic beneficial effects. Don't listen to anyone that tells you that, oh, no, you don't want to go above such and such percent because then you're going to lose the benefit. No, that's not based on published research. So then we go to the high intensity, and we'll start off by saying that if you turn it all the way up to 100% at the high intensity, that's 500 microamps, top of the bell curve. So that means that even at 100% of the high intensity range, you can only do good to your body with your Healy. It is not ever going to do anything bad. Healy World has your back. They know what they're doing.
That's
they're
awesome.
Not giving you something that potentially is harmful or potentially is going to take away from the beneficial effect. You can use your Healy at 100% at the highest intensity range and only do good for your body. But again, I said, usually head up, I only do 150, 160 microamps. So that's at the high intensity level, that's 30 to 35%. 30% is 140 microamps. 35% is about 160 microamps. Then on the body, 55% is 260 microamps. 65% is about 320 microamps. So you can go 55 to 65 at the high intensity level and be at that range. But like I said, you could turn it to 100% and you're at 500. That's the top of the bell curve. So there's nothing wrong with doing that.
And I just wanted to clarify, when you talked about the ear electrodes, we don't have those in the United States because they're not FDA cleared. That's for Europe, just because I know everybody's going to ask me later, and just so we know.
Right. And the only reason I said that, because I know there are probably people that have found ways to have one.
Yeah.
But yes, they are not. I'm hoping that Healy World will get to the point where they can do that. There is another company, AlphaStem, and their device is microcurrent, and they are FDA approved for ear clip electrodes in the United States.
Right.
So if they can do it, we can do it. They did it because they proved with research that it was safe and effective. So we just have to have the time to do the same. And eventually I'm hoping we'll have that as well.
Awesome. So you talk about safe and effective, and I know we had this conversation the other day. People always ask, when can I use my Healy, my coil, the microcurrents, and when can't I? And I know you and I have gone back and forth on email.
Yeah.
Can we briefly just kind of
really briefly,
just a super brief, because then we're gonna wrap it up here soon.
Yep.
So
think of it in this way, and Dr. McMakin has actually said this. If we have normally microcurrent going through our body at every moment of every day, if you've got a metal implant and your normal body's microcurrent can safely go through that, then probably an external microcurrent therapy device isn't going to be any different. So generally, if you have metal implants, remember that all of the cautions and contraindications attached to your Healy are because your Healy is FDA registered as a TENS unit. TENS units run on milliamperage. So remember, it's just, that's the way it has to be, but it's microamperage. So it's 1,000 times less intense current. So if you've got metal implant, I treat patients all the time with metal implants, metal rods, metal replacement joints with microcurrent going right through it, and have never had a problem and never will. That's just because it's microcurrent. So it is generally safe to do that, but we can't really say that and promote that as a company that, we have to abide by, FDA regulations, and this is FDA regulated as a TENS unit, which has those. So I can't say that, that you're allowed to do that, but I want you to think about it in this way, that, even though that's what the regulation is, those are the cautions and contraindications, it is microamperage. And if our body has microamperage going through it all the time and it goes through those metal implants, how is that different than an external microcurrent device going through it? Especially if you've got it to where you can't even feel it.
Right. But they do, just like, because people have asked about pacemakers, because it does say that.
But if it's, but pacemakers and implanted pumps are a little bit different. Some implanted pumps use a microamperage chip. Pacemakers, I've treated people with FSM with pacemakers many times. Pacemakers, you just always have to treat from the waist down. Don't ever treat above the waist if they have a pacemaker. You just don't want to take the chance that electrical current is going to interfere with the pacemaker's ability to create a paced heartbeat.
Right. And the other day, you and I we were talking about people with sensitivities, and if they're ever, what you're saying, if you're ever concerned about your sensitivity being too much with microcurrent, you can just run the frequencies and not be hooked up to the wires. So then you don't, anybody with a pacemaker and any of that stuff can always do the frequencies without any kind of.
So I'll say this, and I'll clarify what you're saying.
Okay.
So, the contraindications are metal implants, pacemakers, pumps. With pacemakers and pumps, I always say pacemaker, just make it really simple, waist down. Implanted pumps.
And when you say waist down, can we tell them how you're doing that? Because you're doing that with.
Yeah. So that means with the bracelet electrodes or sticky adhesive electrodes. Sticky adhesive electrodes makes sense. Bracelet electrodes you're putting around your ankles.
Which I've heard a lot of people use that way, right?
I do it.
Yeah.
If I'm using a Healy program that is an organ like the prostate that's down in your pelvis, I'm not going to put the electrodes on my wrist. I'm going to put them from ankle to ankle so that the current has to go from one ankle all the way up the leg, through the pelvis, through the prostate, down to the other ankle. So it's going right through where you need to treat. So pacemaker, electrodes around, bracelet electrodes around your ankles, or you use adhesive electrodes somewhere on your lower extremities. Right. If you've got an implanted pump, you just call the manufacturer. You ask them, is it safe to run microcurrent through that? And if they say yes, then you've taken the responsibility away from you or someone that shouldn't have that responsibility and given it to the manufacturer of the product that should have the responsibility to tell you that. Now, because I see this all on Facebook all the time, questions about pacemaker, pumps, implanted metal. If there's ever any concern about that, all you have to do is just use the coil. Use the frequencies only, because none of that matters now. And there's another contraindication. We don't really have enough data to know the effects of microcurrent on cancer. Because remember what I said about microcurrent. It's on that bell curve. It increases cellular energy, and it increases growth, vitality. So potentially, could that be causing the cancer to grow more, stimulating its growth? It's a stimulatory effect. So we can just remove that as a possibility and not use microcurrent, just use the frequencies with the coil.
Right.
Then it's safe to use with someone who has cancer, implanted pumps, pacemakers, metal, all of that.
That's awesome. So one last question for you before we're gonna bring everybody on, and I've got an announcement after you, but I asked you the other day, and I would love to ask you this and share with everybody. What's your favorite thing about the Healy? Because I know you're so much like this, all this stuff that you're sharing. First of all, I really appreciate, all the information, education you gave us tonight, but I'd love for you to share with everybody your personal favorite thing.
There is something very unique about Healy that I see as the game changer and kind of the evolutionary leap in frequency medicine that is very unique to Healy, and that's the quantum sensor. So the quantum sensor has really turned it into a smart machine. That's what gives it the ability to have a biofeedback with the body to assess the body's response to frequencies, what it needs continually in real time, make changes to your treatment, make it very personalized. And I'll say that determining what frequencies a person needs, i.e. they resonate with in FSM, is not easy.
Right.
And so when I saw the quantum sensor with Healy, I was blown away, because now we have a piece of technology that can determine that very quickly and very easily. For me, if I have to try to figure out in treating someone manually with FSM, manually putting in the frequencies and trying to assess resonance, at best, I can do maybe 120 frequencies in an hour. Test that many in an hour, 160 frequencies in an hour, whereas Healy can test 14,000 frequencies in 9 minutes.
Wow.
That's a big difference.
Yeah.
So when I saw that, that was a huge game changer. That's what makes Healy miraculous and is now the beginning of the future.
Right.
Because I see more and more frequency therapy, frequency medicine that's going to be able to rely on this kind of amazing technology.
Yeah.
Technology isn't always bad. Technology can be used for our benefit. And this is one great example of that.
Yeah, I love the quantum sensor. I love it so much. And I always talk to people. It's like, I shared with you the other day, and we teach this a lot in this group. Everybody on here is probably somebody's done a remote session with them. That's how they got into this group,
Right.
For, I'd say 80%. And I love that, because we can, we're really expanding quantum medicine, using the quantum in a way that is a powerful way for us to be able to really connect and help and bring our bodies back into balance and have a better quality of life. And so it's exciting. So
yes, it is.
Well, thank you so much, David. I
You're
really
welcome.
appreciate this. Again, and I love that going full circle, like I said, we teach a ton about the frequencies here in this group, not very much around the microcurrents. So you gave a whole detail on that. And then coming back to the quantum sensor, of how amazing that is. And and just being able, and one of the things you shared the other day that I think is really important too is how you talked about why being able to share this with the patients in your office, right? That they can self-treat. And it goes back to what we were talking about, when we were talking about earlier, because again, not everybody knows who everybody is, but we were talking about Frank. That's Frank. Is it Dial? Is his last name Dale? I can't remember his last, but he's
Daily.
Daily. See, Karen always can answer who. She's the detail person here. And he's the chief sales officer of Healy World. And so that the quantum sensor, coming back to that is, and being able to have that real time assessment of people is really what I love. So,
yeah.
But
yeah, and I actually use both FSM and Healy on my patients. I had a patient the other day. I don't really see one as necessarily superior than the other. They're different. They have their own unique differences and strengths. And I have had patients where I've had an FSM program running on them because for that condition, FSM had the best program. And then I had the Healy on them with the coil running a different program because for that complaint, the Healy had the better program.
I love that. Yeah, awesome. And I think, like we were saying the other day, we do a lot of, we use the quantum sensor a lot. We do a lot of remote sessions, but what the biggest thing about you sharing about the microcurrent tonight is everybody who has a Healy in hand has the ability to use the microcurrent piece of the Healy. So I really, and maximizing that. I definitely know that for me, I've been just doing a lot of the frequencies for so long, and I kind of got away from using the microcurrent. And so this is really, it's really helped me. So awesome. Good. Thank you so much. And so
you're welcome.
This is just a big part. You've just gifted our whole group with some more information, and that's what we love to do on these calls. And then we have one announcement I'm going to share with everybody that's super exciting, that everybody knows my partner Brian. He's been, he gives us all our beautiful resources and everything, and he has been working diligently at creating some personalized web pages for us. And many of us want to be able to share the Healy and connect with other people and not have to try to build a whole website and all these things. And so he really wanted to be able to have web pages that were personalized with your shop link on there, with a couple of the videos that we really love, like the brand new Burning the Candle video. Have you seen that, Dr. Webb?
Oh, that was amazing.
Oh, I love that one. When you were talking in the beginning about electricity going through the body, it really touches on that. I think that new video is really makes people understand what frequency is and how everything is frequency. So that, we've got that video. We've got, I love the video on how the quantum sensor works, that 34-minute video. So those are on there. He's got some really great resources on there. And so if you want to get your own web page, you can go. He has, we've got this website set up. It's called myhealyworld.net. And you can go on there and you can, for $14.99 a month, you can be able to have your own website. And so that way, instead of, our biggest thing is not having like all these resources in different places. We want to be able to share one thing for people to connect with. And I know many people, we do a lot of remote sessions or in-person sessions. And so you can attach your calendar on there. So it's really helping to expand the way that you guys can. Yeah, it's amazing. He's did a really fantastic job. So we'll send out on our email tomorrow. He'll send it out on to everybody. But just so you guys know, if you want to check out the myhealyworld.net, I know we've had at least 5 people this week ask us to help us do that. And this is just another way of, Marcus Schmiecki's vision is to get the Healy in the hands of millions. And this group, our Elevated Life group, is completely aligned with that. And we try to give as much resources, education, connection, so that we can really do that. And so that was exciting. So thanks, Brian. And I'm gonna end the recording real quick. And